Hi, I'm Andy Popenfoose, SYM Financial Advisor's Chief Investment Officer. I intend to make a series of videos that share our thoughts on the market as well as answer some of your peers' questions. It's true that it's always easy to find confusing data or alarming headlines in the markets when it comes to the financial news. And while that's always true, it feels like now is a little bit different. So why now? Things are kind of confusing. And when it's confusing, it's always a good idea to talk. So let's get started. The format for this video will be answer 3 questions that were posed to me. The first one being, how do rising interest rates affect my income in retirement? And so I'm going to do the technique of answering this question with a question. So I'm going to pose a quiz to you. Which would you rather have? Would you rather have $100,000 of bonds yielding 1%? Or would you rather have $25,000 of bonds yielding 4%? And from an income standpoint, you can do the math. I'll pause. Both are $1,000 in income per year. And so just a little history to add to the quiz here. 3 years ago, the yield on a 10-year treasury was about 1%. We like to study the 10-year treasury just because, for one reason, it's a big part of the aggregate bond index, so a popular bond benchmark. But also, many interest rates throughout the economy are based on that 10-year treasury's interest rate. And so kind of when it moves, everything pays attention. And so getting to our question at hand, how do rising rates affect our income in retirement? Well, rates have risen quite a bit, from 1% to 3% over the last to 4% over the last 3 years, as I mentioned. And the income effect of that, though, is surprisingly minimal if you're looking at it on a dollar basis. So the prices take a hit. So in my example there that I gave, the prices went down by a lot more than actual bond prices went down. But with the current yield of 1% going to 4%, just for easy math, the dollar amount that comes into a retiree's portfolio that's paid into cash from those bonds is actually pretty steady. If you're depositing, that's a bit different. Now you're buying bonds that are yielding the higher 4% rate, just to use the treasury. And so, of course, those deposits produce a lot more yield than what they would have even 3 years ago. Question 2, are we in a recession yet? So first off, to answer the question, are we in a recession yet? First, what's a recession? So a recession has kind of a colloquial definition of two quarters of declining GDP in a row. More formally, it's a significant, widespread, and prolonged downturn in economic activity. And so that's not the usual case of things. Usually, we have the opposite, where the economy is in an expansion. So that's the condition when we're not in a recession. So are we in a recession now? And I would answer that question no. One of the data series that I like to follow is just unemployment. So that's a real gauge of economic pain when unemployment is spiking, and just how well is Main Street doing. We care about that. Businesses care about that. Certainly, the government cares about that. Kind of anybody who has skin in the game on whether we're in recession or not cares about whether people have their jobs. That's a key source of pain when they want to work and they can't find a job. Well, unemployment is at a 54-year low. That's pretty incredible. It's an incredible statistic. Here's another one. There are about 2 job openings right now for every unemployed person in the nation. And so that is a rare statistic. If you go back 3 years ago, there were 0.8 jobs for openings for every unemployed person. Double that, go back 6 years, same statistic, 0.8 jobs per one unemployed person. And now there are 2 job openings per unemployed person. So in terms of the labor market, it's still not just okay, but a hot labor market. You can look at several other statistics that try to answer the question, how is the economy doing right now? And the signs are it's humming along. It looks like an expansion. Now, where is this cloudy? Where does this get cloudy? there are several signals or tools that people use to forecast. If this signal shrinks, then in subsequent quarters, the economy tends to shrink. This data series rallies, the economy subsequent rallies, so leading indicators in the economics parlance. And several of those leading indicators are showing red flags. So these are not, there are plenty that are kind of cry wolf, and you'd be crazy to pay attention to them because you'd be thinking there's a recession coming every month. This isn't those. These are some of the more respectable forecasting tools that would suggest the economy should cool in the quarters ahead. So we're in this kind of in-between zone, just like the stock market. We're in this in-between zone where right now the economy is doing fine. If you trust these signals, then you would maybe anticipate a little bit of a slowdown in sometime in the quarters ahead. What are the investment implications of leading indicators looking maybe scary while the economy is doing fine? Well, there's a surprisingly loose relationship between how the economy is doing right now and the stock market. In fact, the stock market is one of those tools that people use. The stock market tends to decline before economic activity slows. It tends to rally before economic activity rallies. Last year, stocks were down over 20%, whether you're in the United States or a global investor. And so, if it slows down, that would actually be consistent with the rally that the market decline that we already saw. Rather than flipping that around, we wouldn't want to flip that around and say, well, we anticipate a potential economic cooling, and so get out of stocks. Those two are not joined at the hip, and the people have lost a lot of money over the years, assuming that they are. Question number 3, what is the January effect, and how has this affected markets in the past? So this is a fun question. Fun fact, there are actually 2 January effects, and both have appeared in peer-reviewed studies, prestigious journals. One of these effects tends to be used more commonly in academic circles, whereas the other one you see more in kind of the financial press and among practitioners. The first effect, this is the one that the professors tend to use the most, was discovered by some University of Iowa professors, and they studied data going all the way back to 1904 and found that stock returns on average seemed to be amazing in January. There are a few fun theories as to why this occurs. Things from tax loss harvesting. So if you have a rough year, you sell everything in December, then buy it all back in January, and so you have this wave of buying. Maybe that's one reason. Another one would be what's called window dressing. So you could have sketchy financial advisors who want to clean up the statement, have holdings their client likes at year end, statement is printed, and now they're going to sell all those, and then in January buy their actual investments they think will perform the highest. So that's called window dressing, to make a statement look one way, but then buy what you actually like in January. So that's another potential cause. I think with data transparency over the years, that would be probably a stretch if that was a big contributor today. My personal theory is everybody gets their year-end bonus, or a lot of people who are in the stock market at least get year-end bonuses. Take care of the holidays, and then whatever's left over in January, put it in the market, so you get this wave of buyers in the market. So that's my own theory for what that's worth. And did it work? Well, this January was amazing. In the United States, stocks were up over 6%. In developed markets and emerging markets, they were both up around 8% in January. So congratulations if you're a believer. We had a great January stock market in 2023. The second January effect is a bit different from that. So again, this is the one that you tend to see in more financial press and just in practitioner circles. And the idea is this: if you have a good January in the stock market, that means that the rest of the year will end up good. The subsequent 11 months are good. If you have a bad January, then the next 11 months are bad in the stock market. So this study is actually dear to my heart. One of the authors, one of my professors at Purdue, Dr. John McConnell, who I owe a world of gratitude for all he taught me, He was actually one of the authors who studied this. They found data going all the way back to 1825 that they could use for some of these tests to see just simply that. If January is good, is the year good? If January is bad, is the year bad? And they found a quite a good relationship over the years with long history. So again, congrats if you're a believer. We had a great January, and so you should be pretty optimistic about 2023. These are called seasonality studies. And what do we do with seasonality at SYM? Well, they're fun to monitor, and we could potentially, on rare occasions, speed or slow a decision based on January. It's to be honest, it's really uncommon that we would really pursue this in the way that that we put some of the other academic studies to work with client portfolios. There are two main reasons to sit this one out. First, the implication, whether you're only going to be in the market in January because Januaries are so awesome on average, or if you're only going to be in the market the whole year, you're going to wait and see in January. And if it's a good January, you'll invest. And if it's a poor January, you'll sit out. Either way, that implies you're ready to get out of the market all the time. And when you're buying and selling that often, you're realizing your gains and getting taxed on those, the whole portfolio potentially. So that would just be a lot of tax to be buying and selling based on a season or based on a calendar signal like that. So that's one reason. The other one probably resonates even more than that with me. And that's this, is these types of strategies are extremely difficult to stick with. Here's the life of a seasonality strategy, according to me. So you read this, it looks like the Holy Grail, whether it's these or any other seasonality study. If you only are in the market under these conditions, historically you would have made so much money, you would have avoided so many drawdowns, things like that. So you kind of fall in love with the idea. So I'm going to get started. And at some point along the line, even great signals that work over decades have dreadful stretches of performance along the way. And so in one of these cases, imagine you're out of the market in a time that's not supposed to be good, and the market just rallies. Then you get in the market and it lags. And maybe that happens once, and you say to yourself, do I really believe in this? Or do I think maybe it was just like random chance in the data? Or has something changed from the conditions that led to these seasonalities in the past data? Do I really believe in this? And then, you could do it once, maybe you try it twice, and maybe it stings you again. And more than likely, you won't say, I believe in this to my core. I can repeat it through thick and thin for an investment career. You're more likely to say, this stinks. Like I'm sick of sitting out during rallies and being in during declines. And so I'm just going to abandon the strategy. And so that's really why they're kind of unappealing to me, is the sting of being out in a rally and being in a decline. Even if these good strategies, and the professors acknowledge this, that they don't work like clockwork, they have long stretches where they don't work. Well, if that's the prime earning years that you're paying into your investment accounts and going, that's painful and too tough to stick with. So again, the studies themselves don't acknowledge, they do acknowledge that these seasonality approaches don't work like clockwork. So with that, those are the three questions I wanted to answer. How do rising interest rates affect income? Are we in a recession yet? And what is the January effect? I hope you enjoyed this and look forward to more great stuff to come.